Hey everybody, welcome to the fourth of 10 videos for my top 100 games of all time. If you haven't seen any of the others, please check the description for a link to the playlist below. But let's go ahead and jump into the number 70 game, and that is going to be Tammany Hall. And this actually has replaced an older game called El Grande, which I played several years ago. And this feels very, very similar in some ways to El Grande. It is a definite area control game, but it is set in sort of the Gangs of New York era, 5 Points in New York, where players are sort of manipulating some of the different immigrants that are coming in from the boats and settling in New York City and trying to get their political favor to then control the politics and become, the boss, so to speak, of that particular region. Now, it is a very, very streamlined, simple area control game in a lot of ways, but it has a really cool mechanic where whoever sort of won the previous round gets the mayor role, but then hands out all of the other roles, which is going to hurt them. And so they're going to get the different special abilities. So the mayor gets a little bit of a bonus, but then everybody else gets some different cool special abilities going into sort of the next election cycle. So that's a very interesting sort of political element, but it's very sort of hands-off, if you will. So it kind of leaves that up to the players. Now, the cool thing about this game also is it actually scales pretty well from 3 to 5 players. Whereas with El Grande, for example, I used to only want to play that with 5. This one I still play with 3. I really would only like to play this with 4 or 5. 3 is fine, but there's 3-player games, there's just some weird about 3-player games. If there's any kind of attacking, you can kind of pin one guy off into the corner or let 2 other people fight and then run off. That's just like a standard 3-player problem, and this kind of still has that. But in terms of spacing and control and sort of mechanical balance, it works fine with 3 players. Anyway, so if you had the right group of 3 players, it could definitely work. Of course, you could say that about just about any game. But this scales very well, 3 to 5 players. It kind of gets you into the theme. The board and everything, as you saw there, looks really, really cool. This is one that I definitely recommend, and it very much is a backstabby, slit your throat thing, and you don't want to jump out into the lead. Some people don't like that where the leader gets bashed, but this is really part of the game because once you put yourself up, and if you run a country, if you run a state or something, you become a big fat target. And so for me, that's cool. It's part of this game. So that is number 70, Tammany Hall. Number 69 is Galaxy Defenders. This is a somewhat new game, and really have had a great time with this game. It's basically XCOM the game, sort of, except for there is an XCOM game, but this is sort of the tactical shooting level of the game. And now it has a campaign mode in it where you can play through a campaign, you can have soldiers kind of come in and drop off, and you're going to collect alien artifacts and things to bring back and then make cooler weapons, kind of like just like XCOM. Very much like sort of the Dungeons and Dragons adventure game, Castle Ravenloft and Legend of Drizzt and all that kind of stuff. A little bit more souped up and developed over that. So if you like those style games and you're into sort of the XCOM theme, I would definitely take a look at this because it's a little bit better. It's got a much more fleshed out campaign mode. It's got a cool app actually for tracking your campaign, and the way that the combat and things work and the different objectives in the game are a little bit more developed, I think, and really a lot of fun. And you have some cool special abilities and things that you can do. So it's just like a simple sort of campaign, Warhammer Quest, Hero Quest kind of vibe to it, but with XCOM and a little bit more, I don't know, modernized or something. The mechanics work well, is what I'm trying to say. So that's number 69 at Galaxy Defenders. Number 68 is Muterer, which means either mutiny or mutineer in German. This is another old game, and it is one of the sort of originators of this role selection thing that you see in San Juan and Puerto Rico and Roll for the Galaxy. This one has a brother or sister game called Verrater, which means traitor. But I like this one a little bit better than Verrater for sure because it's sort of a pirate theme, or you can play it as a pirate variant, and I do recommend playing that. What players are doing is they sort of coexist on this ship that is traveling around and shipping goods. Now, you can always have mutinies where, let's say I do the mutiny and then I have enough backing from some of the other players to become the captain of the ship, and then I'll take control of it and try to steer it towards a certain port where maybe I have the cards to make more money or score more points than the other players. So it's really, really cool in that way because it plays great, and we played a heck a ton of times at lunch, and it just elicits some great, you know, trash talk, because you're trying to figure out who to back, and then there's a little bit of deduction in terms of the roll cards, and as they're selected, you're trying to figure out, okay, well, he took this one out, so I know he's kind of doing this. And then the captain kind of has, you know, you can throw your weight behind your captain and score some points and kind of leech points out of the captain, because they have to sort of like, it's almost like putting up for a bid. You say, okay, if somebody helps me, you're going to get 2 of my points, or something like that. So I did a review of this one. Definitely go take a look at it. And it really holds up for me. And you really get into the theme of just this dastardly crew, you know, surfing around these islands and, you know, just stabbing each other in the back, trying to score money for themselves. So that's number 68, Muter. Number 67 is Haggis. And Haggis is a ladder climbing game like Tichu or something like that. It only plays 2 or 3 players, and it plays fine at both of the player counts. I'll play it at either player count. It's got its own special deck of cards. And I mentioned earlier about sort of games clumping up in a previous video. It definitely did for this video. So you'll kind of see, and it's not like on purpose. It just kind of, the vibe of the games that I like, I think, kind of shifts as I go down the top 100. I'll talk again more about the analysis in the last video, but you're going to see a lot of these kind of games all of a sudden just stack up all of a sudden. But Haggis is one of my favorite sort of ladder climbing games. Again, because you can play it 2-player and it works really well, and you can play it 3-player and it works really well as well. But no, I haven't done a video of this, but there's a couple of good videos on this. It's pretty simple rules and everything, but it's simple ladder climbing. Did I just call it a trick-taking game? I think I did. It's a simple ladder climbing game where you're trying to build sets and kind of go out first, and then, you know, collect certain cards that'll score you points also as you take them in hands. Definitely recommend it. I think it kind of goes in and out of print, so sometimes it can be hard to find this one. Just like the next one, number 66 is Frank's Zoo. This is a weird game, and I think it's overlooked and misunderstood probably in some ways. It looks like a kid's game, and it actually has rules for basically like a family or kids version, but I would just throw that out, play the advanced version, and it works well because it's a 4 to 7? I would never play with 7. I think it's 4 to 6 player game. Maybe it says 7. But it's also a ladder climbing game, but it does something that's awesome, which is you can have shifting teams. So based on the scores from the previous round, then like the first player and the last place player will join up and be a part of the team. And then sometimes if you have an odd number of players, you'll have somebody else that's on their own, but they get a little sort of a, you know, catch up or a little bonus as like a handicap. And they're kind of playing off of their own. But it's a weird ladder climbing game with sort of like a loop, because it's not like numbers and suits, it's animals. And certain animals sort of, it seems like they're eating each other, but it's not really eating because it does some weird stuff. But like the mouse actually beats the elephant. So it's got a silly theme, but it does have a lot of cool, you know, hand management, deduction, you know, and if you're familiar with these ladder climb games, you're kind of trying to suck the cards out of players so you can get the advantage and then go in and, you know, lay down your big bomb hands and all that stuff. It's got a lot of that kind of stuff in there, but again, it has that sort of shifting alliance dynamics there. So that was number 66, Frank's Zoo. Switching gears a little bit, but it's still a card game, is number 65, Star Realms. This is, of course, a brand new game from last year, and the expansions and everything have really driven this up. The app itself has really driven this up. In this game, I have some of the most dramatic moments that you've ever seen in a game, I've ever seen in a game, where somebody can be up like 40 to 8 in terms of the authority or the hit points that they have left, and then somebody will have and then their engine kicks in and just hammers the other player. Or you'll see a game where it's just back and forth, and then it's just huge turn after huge turn after huge turn. And it's super exciting, super fun to play. You know, you've got different modes that you can do. I love the raid mode where one player is sort of like the overlord or whatever, and then other players attack them. That's really cool. That's not on the app if you've only played it with the app. It's in the rules for the physical game, and then the expansion packs are really cool. And this one has replaced Ascension in a lot of ways for me. I think for it to sort of legitimately replace it for good, it probably needs another expansion or two, because this, you know, there's so many different crazy combos in Ascension. Maybe there's too many at this point. But you know, I'd like to see a few more of those for Star Realms. But man, I can't even tell you. It's just so fun and exciting to play, and just a big thrill ride. And you get to just punch each other in the mouth the whole time. So it's super fun. I mean, I know people are probably kind of getting sick of Star Realms, but when I'm playing games, I don't care what people are sick of. So anyway, that's number 65, Star Realms. Number 64 is A Court of the Medici. This is a very not well-known game. Now, it was published by Z-Man Games. It's a 2-player card game, and it uses public domain artwork from the Renaissance period, or the Baroque period maybe. It's based on the crime families. I call them crime families. They're not really crime families. Each player gets 2 decks of cards. So you get a blue deck and a red deck. So you take one color, I take the other. They have the exact same cards in them, and you set up the kind of middle area in the center of the board. I did a review on it. And then you basically are playing Scopa, from what I understand, except it's like a slight variant on it with some cards that do some slight special abilities, and you're trying to build up and destroy stacks and everything to sort of equal different card numbers and stuff. So it has some interesting elements because it's all about the card counting and doing the different things. And they have these, you kind of have to like be careful of the minister and the jester cards and the lady in waiting cards, which are the low numbers, but they can really sort of shake up the board. And you are trying to basically leave as much points out on the board as you can once sort of this inner court of cards has been depleted from one of the players. Now, it's difficult for me to keep going because I'm just going to throw mechanics at you, and I don't want to do that because it's just confusing. But it's really fun. And this is another one of those. I mentioned this with Omen before. We break it out at lunch quite a bit if there's just 2 of us, and you want to have somebody that you can play it with a lot. And a lot of games are like that, like Lost Cities and Battle Line and Omen, and this one, you want a partner that you can play with a lot so you can really read them and kind of learn their tendencies, and they can learn yours and bounce it off, and then it becomes super, super fun. And you have games in this that will last like 3 minutes, and then you'll have some games that just go down to the wire. And again, they're so exciting, similar to Star Realms, where you just like, oh, boom, 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 and then it just unravels. It's awesome. It's just super fun. So that is Court of the Medici. And number 63 is Chimera. This is another ladder climbing game. This has now quickly become my favorite ladder climbing game. Now, it is a 3-player only game, which is tricky. But similar to Frank's Zoo, you have this idea, but you do it through sort of a bidding process of 2 versus 1. And that's going to change every round, though. And so you're going to deal out your cards. You're going to try to see who's going to bid to go out. And then whoever sort of bids the highest, then the other 2 players sort of target them and sort of try to sabotage that. But you've got some more special ability cards, more like in Teach You, and some other different things. And you're also trying to grab some of the scoring cards, the frogs and the cats in there. And then you try to grab those and also score points, similar to Haggis. So it's got a ton of possibilities in terms of like the kind of tricks or sets that you can put together as far as going up the ladder and how that works. So it might be the most complicated I've seen and have just the most possibilities for what you can do there. But that's kind of cool because it kind of makes you go, oh, well, I could do this time. And so it gives you a lot of possibilities there. I would definitely take a look at Chimera if you're into this kind of game. If you're not into this kind of game, I would kind of stay away from it until you played a few others a lot. Because I'm still kind of learning how Chimera works and everything. But this is for sure my favorite because, again, I love shifting team dynamics and shifting alliances where I'm playing with different partners. Now, you won't see Teach You on here because you got to have a partner, and then you got to play against another set of partners, and you kind of have to know each other. So it's not that I don't like Teach You and necessarily think it's a bad game. It's just I don't have that sort of lifestyle and commitment where I can have a partner and we can kind of read each other and then play against another set and stuff like that. So these other games kind of fit more, again, my sort of environments that I game in. That's number 63. Number 62, completely changing gears now, is Firefly. This is another Gale Force 9 game, and really have enjoyed this game more and more and more over the last couple of years. With the expansions, they add quite a bit to it, especially not the first expansion, like the first big box expansion. They added the pirates and the bounty hunters and things. And then the Blue Sun stuff, which I even haven't really cracked the surface of at all, it looks really cool as well. There is now so many different scenarios and things that you can do and play with the game. It really feels to me like you jump into the universe or the verse, and you're able to kind of set up different episodes of the show or whatever and do different things. And now you can play a sort of hands-off game, a sort of pick up and deliver game, or really in-your-face game where you're just, stealing people's characters and grabbing them that way, or plundering their ship. And the Reavers can come in and just hose you up if you want to play a really sort of hardcore game. So I like this. It's very kind of toolboxy, sandboxy feel to the game, with a ton of stuff that's going to be on the board. You got all these different cards and decks that go to different planets. There's just a ton to play with, and I really like this universe. That's Firefly is my number 62, and obviously it's not a game for everybody, and it can take a while to play depending on the scenario that you pick out, and all that kind of good stuff. But if you're into the universe at all, then I would say probably check it out. So I think this one's a little bit more of an acquired taste, but it's definitely, one of my favorite Gale Force 9 games. Anyway, so number 61 is Imperial Assault. But this is, of course, a very new game. Came out at the end of 2014. We've had a great time playing through the campaign on this one, but the thing that really kind of kicks this one up for me is actually the two-player skirmish mode. It's very streamlined and simple and straightforward, but it just, something about it really hums and sings, and just, it's super quick and easy to play through, but it gives you a lot of sort of ways to express and build different armies and units and everything, and build up your deck of the command cards and just tinker with that. But the actual mechanics and the way that you capture terminals or the different objectives based on the different scenarios is just awesome. It's just, there's so much they can throw at this thing. And of course, I'm a Star Wars fan, so of course I really like that. But I would definitely check this out. Even if you don't even want to play the whole campaign or anything, you want a cool two-player battle game, I would just pick it up. I would completely pick it up just for the skirmish game. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can get the extra, models and stuff, and get the extra command cards and the figures and all that kind of cool stuff. But it's really, really quite a fun to play. And I really do enjoy the campaign as well. So the campaign, if I could say anything about it, is a little bit sort of, I don't know what it is. It's fun, it is well done, and it's polished, and it's put together. But in terms of the story and the narrative and everything, it's just kind of expected. So that's the only thing about the campaign is you have to definitely sort of embellish yourself onto it. I think that's okay. I think maybe that was the intent, whereas sort of the Imperial player, the Overlord player in this case, will sort of ad-lib things and sort of leave it up to the players to kind of role-playing, because everything on the characters, they're very kind of stale in a lot of ways. The theme, it doesn't seem like they're hitting you over the head with the theme. That's what I kind of want to draw back about this anyway. But I don't really have a problem with that, because then I can go in and act stupid and, make my Emperor voice, and everybody can do their stupid Jar Jar voices and all these different kind of things like that. So anyway, that's my number 61, Imperial Assault. And so if you're watching this sort of in real time, I will see you next week. Thanks.